So welcome to dfwmobile.net. Definitely appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to come out. This is our contact information. That's our Twitter. That's our website. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to give us a contact or give us a call or tweet us. That's it. This is the leadership group. Everybody's here today, as a matter of fact. Definitely want to say, first of all, thank you to you guys again for coming out, and thank you to Matrix. They've been sponsoring us for almost 2 years, which has been pretty awesome. If you guys are ever in the market looking for a tech job or anything related to that, feel free to reach out to them. So I've got my own intro slides for today's presentation. We don't have our next presentation lined up, but we're just kind of bouncing some ideas around. Just, follow us on Meetup. We'll get that information out.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In regards to Matrix, does the Meetup group have a direct contact with Matrix? Is there someone that's our interface?
We can definitely recommend somebody.
Okay. I'd like to get that name.
Okay.
Just let them know part of
Yeah, when the meeting's over, we can talk.
Okay.
From. So just to kind of give you a brief background on myself, just started over here. So my name is Homero. You can call me Homer. I'm not really too picky about my name. I've been called worse. Romero, Omarion, whatever. So I'm not too picky about it. But brief background. I've been developing for a while now, primarily in .NET. I've written numerous websites using web forms, MVC. I've done a lot of backend services, web services, WCF, and now the flavor seems to be RESTful, especially for the mobile development world. I still do a lot of websites, but now I'm also doing a lot of mobile development. I specialize, or I concentrate mostly on Android. I'm a big Android fan. I don't know if anybody else here is an Android fan. Oh, nobody? There you go. Yeah. Steve. Steve has my back. Yeah, no. So this is my contact information, my Twitter, and my email. If you guys ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. Yeah. So adding context to your apps. What exactly does that mean, right? I mean, because all apps out there provide some kind of context. Whether you're reading your email through your app, you're on Facebook, or if you're playing some kind of video game, you're getting some kind of context. But what if your app could give you personalized content based on location or proximity to some other device that's out there? Imagine, for example, if you're at Walmart or at Target, and as you're walking in, you get a notification basically telling you of all the coupons, all the discounts at that very same location that you're at. Or if you're walking into the ballpark in Arlington, and as you're approaching the gate, you get another notification that asks you if you want to upgrade your seats. That's pretty cool, but it's kind of creepy too. So anyhow, now there's a lot of technology out there, Bluetooth low energy devices out there that can enable that type of communication between apps and other devices. So today we're going to talk about using iBeacons in Xamarin to be able to add more context to your apps. Let me show you something. Before I can tell you what an iBeacon is, I have to tell you what a beacon is, period. So let me hand these out.
Did you get a count before you start again?
I know, right? Here you go, guys. I went ahead and sliced open one of these so that you guys can see what's running inside of them. Just hand them around, pass them around. So according to this definition here, beacons are devices that can communicate over Bluetooth Low Energy. Bluetooth Low Energy was introduced as part of the Bluetooth 4.0 spec, which I think was released back in 2010, 2011. And basically what it's doing is it's shouting out its name or its identification number so that other devices can pick up its proximity, its location. Now, I know this is kind of bland, so I kind of want to elaborate on what Bluetooth Low Energy is. Like I was saying, it was introduced with Bluetooth 4.0, but that's where I can say all the comparisons in, because the implementation of it is a lot different from Bluetooth, where Bluetooth Low Energy doesn't require a connection or any kind of pairing to be able to communicate. It's really meant for low power consumption, so it's only broadcasting a small amount of data. I believe it's like 47 bytes of data that it's broadcasting out, and it's broken up into 4 blocks of chunks, or 4 blocks of data. Any questions about Bluetooth Low Energy? Okay, good. Probably. And the other thing about beacons is that they're always broadcasting their signals. It's continuous. If you guys look at the actual Bluetooth or the beacon devices, they're just really mini computers. And if you look at what they're powered by, as far as like Sean has the Estimote here, it's a coin cell battery. And the other one that I'm passing out is 2 AAA batteries.
What's the life on something like that?
So I guess it depends per brand. Estimote says that it's 2 years. I don't know what the beacon lifespan is, but on Estimote, you can actually throttle that. You can actually increase the interval at which it's broadcasting out its message. So when you do that, obviously you're reducing the lifespan of it, or you can throttle it back down and you're increasing the lifespan of it. I'm sure you can do the same thing with the other manufacturers that are out there.
Maybe 2 weeks.
Right.
But that's broadcasting almost.
Well, for example, on this one, I can actually throttle the message, the interval at which it's going at, frequency. And so yesterday I was playing with it, and I reduced it to, I think it was 256 milliseconds. And so originally, before I throttled it back to 256 milliseconds, it said the lifespan of 18 months. Well, when I put it down to 256 milliseconds, it said a lifespan of 3 months. So that was really drastic.
What did you change from?
I went from almost 1 second, 900 and some odd milliseconds, to 256.
So it's 1 second, maybe.
Right. And obviously, you know, and 1 second's pretty good. I don't see why you would want to go, you know, 256 milliseconds unless you're targeting something in particular. So with that being said, what are iBeacons? It's not a physical device. It's actually an Apple trademark, term, and specification. What Apple did is they took the BLE specification, tweaked it, and called it their own iBeacons. That's all they did. Apple being Apple, right? I'm sorry. Don't mean that. But definitely wouldn't. They'll let you do whatever you want. Android is wild, wild west. But basically, the iBeacon specification defines their broadcast signal, the interval, and the message format, which is not much different from the BLE message format, but I know that they reduced it down to 31 bytes, and it's actually broken up into 5 blocks. And I'll go over that in a little bit. But any device that is BLE capable or broadcasting in BLE can become an iBeacon. You just have to actually go through Apple's registration specifications. And down at the bottom, I've got a link for that if you're interested in that. It's called the MiFi program. So beacons comes built in to any iOS 7 devices and later, like your iPhone 4S, iPad 3rd generation, iPad mini. Apple, I guess, already had this in mind. And so behind the doors, they were already providing that type of functionality in their hardware. Unlike Android, the operating system in iOS 7 and later actually has built-in functionality for a beacon object. And it goes off of the core location services. But beacons are also supported in Android. Android 4.3 and above, which is Jelly Bean, API 18. That has no built-in support for beacons, but you can still pick up beacons because it supports BLE. You would just either have to write your own functionality, but there are plenty of SDKs out there available. Estimote to one of them, ATL Beacon or Alt Beacon, Radius Network, and Sector. And these are all components that are available in the Xamarin component store, which you can add to your project. So the example that I gave earlier is just one example or one type of example or two types of examples that you can use iBeacons for. Now, you can use them to trigger notifications and events, which is popular. You can use them for advertisements, ticketing information at ballparks. I know that I believe last year at the Super Bowl, there were a lot of iBeacons being used. You can do the indoor navigation, but that's kind of tricky. There are certain malls across the country that are using them. But in order to do indoor navigation, you have to have several iBeacons because basically what you're doing is triangulation. And the problem with using iBeacons to do triangulation is that, like in an area where we're at, it's clear. So you don't have anything interfering with the message or the signal. So it's easy to do it there. But at places that's really busy, that has a lot of people walking around and just obstacles in the path of these signals, it's really hard to do. You can do home automation as well. Come home from work, if you have an iBeacon set up, automatically turn on your AC or your heat, lights, remind you to feed your dog or goldfish if you have one. So I already gave you the example of the Super Bowl using iBeacons. Major League Baseball is also using iBeacons. They're using them throughout ballparks around the country. I don't know if the Arlington Ballpark Stadium is using them or not, but I know that Macy's rolled out a lot of beacons. I think it was over 4,000. And they actually teamed up with another company called Shopkick. It's an app that you can download. Shopkick is kind of cool because Shopkick teamed up with other major retail industries or stores out there. And kind of like the Walgreens example that I gave you. Download Shopkick. If that Walgreens app has iBeacons, more than likely, you're going to get a notification from them. Apple stores. And these are just more like retail examples.
Yeah, Macy's took it one step further, and they're using the iBeacons with their video recognition as well.
Are they?
Yeah.
What are they doing with video recognition?
Facial recognition.
Oh, facial recognition?
Yeah.
How are they implementing that?
Well, they were playing around with it last January, for the Forrester Research Group thing.
Okay.
And they were one of the first adopters of it in some of their test stores. And they're applying it with the beacons as well.
Okay.
So they can basically personalize your shopping experience.
And that's really the purpose of beacons or iBeacons in period. It's more for a personalizing, providing more context, like he was saying. So
They're also using them a lot in casinos in Las Vegas.
okay.
They're deploying
can kind of see that because casinos are hotel, and that would be perfect for that situation. If you have that, like let's say for example, orbits. You know, I do a lot of travel. Well, not a lot of traveling, but I spend a lot of time in hotels, going back and forth between Dallas and San Antonio. I mean, it'd be great if I showed up at a hotel using iBeacons. The staff would know when I walked in, and I don't know, kind of help.
Just check you in.
Yeah, just check me in right then and there.
Go up and just wave your phone at the door.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So this, I think the next screen will kind of help you understand the iBeacon message format. So one of the things, the three most important things in the iBeacon message format are the three center blocks: the proximity UUID, the major, and the minor. The TX power counts if you're doing distance, if you're measuring distance between the actual beacon and the app itself or the phone. But these three, UUID, major, and minor, are probably the most important parts. The iBeacon prefix is Apple's way of saying this is an iBeacon compatible specification. Do you have a question? What was that? This one's 31 bytes. It's 30? Okay, I don't know if it's a typo in that message format. I actually downloaded this image, so sorry about that. If you can tell, the BLE message format is 47 bytes, and it's broken up into 4 blocks. This one here is 31 bytes or 30 bytes, and it's broken up into 5 blocks.
30 bytes because it doesn't include the TX power.
This one does include TX power.
Right.
Or it might be a typo. Sorry, guys.
That one byte will get you.
It will. It's always the mundane details, right? So just to kind of explain to you how you can use that data that I just showed you. Imagine that you're a retail store, right? And you own like Macy's, sorry. Your UUID would represent every single beacon owned by Macy's. Your major would represent every single beacon owned by Macy's, but that's in San Francisco, or in Paris, or in London. Minor would be the departments within Macy's. And you can actually take this a step further. You could actually target individual items. Of course, you would have to step up one more. Your major would be, your UUID would be your major, in this case, would be 1. Your minor would be 10 for the department. Your major would be 10 for the department, and your minor would be the specific item that it's assigned to. It is. It's adjustable. And I'll go over that in a little bit, because that actually also presents a security issue. Here's something else I forgot to hand out. You guys can check these out.
I know just the guy who's a security problem. He's not in this room.
He's not
He's not here.
Oh.
Have you ever seen a product called Tile?
I've heard of Tile.
Is that a beacon?
I don't know for sure, but I've heard it referenced. It's a beacon. So these, what you have in your hand, are Estimote stickers, and they have the same capabilities that these Estimotes do. The difference between this device and that device is the actual SDK that accesses them. For whatever reason, the Estimote decided that that should have more functionality, the stickers, than these devices here. You would use the sticker to target a particular item. Like if you wanted to put it on a shoe, a TV, and that actually detects, both devices detect mobility or motion, but the SDK for the stickers is where that's implemented. I ordered those back in August of 2014, and I didn't get them till last week. That's how backed up they are. Either that or they made a big mistake. and just forgot about my order. I had to email them and ask them about it. So I think it's 10 for 100. Yeah, it's not a bad deal.
That's why they're so hard to keep in stock.
Yeah. So that's I guess the prices for these are dropping down. And obviously, I got this information here from Mike Bloomstein, one of his presentations. He's actually, or used to work for Xamarin, developer evangelist. Great source of information. If you guys ever get a chance, check out his blog. You know, check him out on Twitter.
Try hiding that again.
What's that? Yeah, I tried hiding it, but
Can you exit this presentation mode?
let's see.
You just stop screen sharing.
Oh, great. Hold on. Let me get back on.
Click hide now.
There it goes. Let me try this again. Sorry for the technical difficulties, guys.
I'm gonna have a hard time attaching one of these to my son.
There's actual companies that are using stickers for Alzheimer's patients. So if they wander past a certain proximity or area, they actually go back out and get them.
How do they keep them on the page?
What's that? Between the shin. So I think what they're doing is that they're putting them on their shoes, or maybe giving them some kind of badge. I'm not exactly sure how they're doing it, but I know that they're using it for that. Yeah, maybe like a bracelet. And there's other places that are using this for animals, dogs, your pets, cats. If it takes off, you go get it. Tell it to come back. So there's two functions that we're going to go over today. One of them is monitoring. And basically what monitoring does is for your app, when you have these predefined UUIDs, majors and minors, whenever your app runs, your app is specifically monitoring for beacons that fit that profile. That's what monitoring is. Ranging is something that we're also going to discuss or demo, and that's basically for measuring distance between the actual beacon device itself and your app. And it's not completely accurate, it's just an estimate. But I guess each manufacturer has their own definition of what ranging is. For example, Estimote has 4 classes of proximities. They have immediate, near, far, and unknown. Types of beacons, there's several types out there. I just showed you guys just 2 of them. There's the Estimote beacons, the Estimote stickers. There are the Beacon, Stick and Find, the Blue Cats, and Mercury development. You could also create your own. The ones that we're going to go over today, or that I've been showing the most, are Estimote. Supported platform, initially only supported by iOS 7 devices, iPhone, iPad, but now it's also supported by Android 4.3 and above, Jelly Bean. And it's speculated or rumored that Windows 10 on PC, phones, and tablets will also be supporting beacons. There are a couple of beacon myths, or a few myths out there, misconceptions about beacons. A lot of people think that they're GPS capable, and that's not true. One of the major advantages to beacons is they can actually, well, they work indoors. That's really what they're made for. Whereas GPS can't pinpoint anything inside of a mall or inside of a store, and that's where the triangulation, indoor navigation comes into play. that it requires pairing to a device, which is not true. BLE is an open standard protocol. So as long as any device that's listening for BLE signals, they can pick up that signal. Another myth is it only works for iOS devices. As we'll find out later on tonight, we can make it work with an Android device as well. It's a tracking device, which is not true. It doesn't track anything. All it's doing is just basically screaming its identifier, and that it's used or that it's spam. It in itself is not spam. It's how the app that's monitoring and ranging for these beacons that could make it look like it's spam. Here's something that I added in earlier today. Beacon security concerns. There's actually two major security concerns with beacons. There is the beacon hijacking, which is somebody who's savvy enough could get together a Bluetooth sniffer and actually alter your UUID, your major or your minor, and make it their own. So you've just lost your beacon, which is not that big of a deal. You know, it's what these right here run about 30 bucks. The stickers run about 10 bucks. And there's probably a few out there that are cheaper than that.
But it would only be in that proximity.
Yeah.
So if they would do it across town, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to be in the range of the beacon in order to do it. Like, I couldn't start something up right now and be able to pick up all the beacons in this area. I'd have to be within range of that beacon. The other one is piggybacking, which is probably the most dangerous of the two, because really what somebody can do with piggybacking is if they find out, like one of your competitors, right, finds out that you have beacons at a particular store, they can actually find out the UUID, the major and the minor, and write their own app that this is for those beacons as well, so that whenever, well, let me take a step back. They may go after the same consumers that you're going after, and whenever one of those consumers goes in with their app and your app, they would see their notification. So that's one way of doing it, piggybacking. Possible solutions to that, I guess this right here is more platform specific. I know that Estimote actually implemented their own, how do you call that? Their own solution to avoid piggybacking, and it's called Estimote, well, it's called UUID rotation. And basically what that does is on a timed interval, it changes the UUID of your beacon, and that change is based off a key that's stored on that actual beacon. You could actually store content on those little devices. It's a small mini computer. The other part to help you, I can say, protect against these security concerns are the actual programmers themselves. So I don't know if you guys, you may know about this, but I think it was a couple years ago, somebody at a CES conference, I think they put together a iBeacon game, kind of like a scavenger hunt. And some guy actually won the scavenger hunt without being at the conference itself. He ended up getting a hold of the app, and he decompiled it. And the programmer who wrote the app actually hard-coded all the beacon identifiers. And so this guy, all he did was just find out what the last winning or the last beacon was and submitted it, and he won. So, you know.
Should be worth something being created.
Yeah, exactly. You got to give the guy credit, right? He figured out how to work the system. But, you know, just to, if you're developing one of these apps, don't hard code any of your identifiers in the app. If you're going to do that, encrypt them. Or if you're going to download them from the web, encrypt them as well and decrypt them on your app. Secure them at least, HTTPS. And that's the other bullet point there. Encrypt these UUIDs and majors. Another topic that I wanted to bring up is all this iBeacon functionality that we're talking about was created by iOS. And even though it works on Android, it's not as functional as it is on iOS because it's built into the actual operating system itself. But coming out this year, Android M, or Android is releasing, or Google's releasing the new platform update. It's called Android M, and they're coming out with something similar to iBeacons. It's called Google Nearby. That one's actually a little, kind of a little bit more creepy, because that's going to provide a little bit more functionality. It'll actually like open up your mic, or it has the functionality to be able to open up your mic, be able to tie into your location services, so it can track you, which is one of the myths, or one of the people were concerned about iBeacons. Some of the other stuff, I don't know yet, because it's still speculated on some of the functionality that's going to be released. But hopefully when that comes out, I'll give a demo on that, a quick demo. So now it's demo time. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a new project from scratch, download the Estimote SDK from the component store, make all the modifications to it, and we're actually going to look for a particular beacon in this room, and we'll see how it'll work out. While this is building, did anybody have any more questions?
Yeah, on the UUID rotation, how does that actually work?
No.
Does your app know what the next ID is going to be?
So the way that UUID works on a key, and so think of it as a private and public shared key. As long as the hash, I'm assuming it's a hash, as long as the hash matches, you would be able to identify that. So that UUID rotation is based off some kind of algorithm, a hash. And I guess on your phone, on your app, you would check to see if it matches the same type of hash, or if it would match, the UUID would match the algorithm. Matter of fact, I mean, if you go to, I think it's community.estimote.com, you can actually find out more information about it. So we're going to go to the component store, get more components. This is the one that we want. Going to go to our main activity. Have you guys done any Android development before? So you guys are familiar, at least a couple of you guys, a few of you guys are familiar with the activities. Activity in this case, in Android, this is our main entry point. Since we're defining it as the actual main launcher. So in here is where we're going to do all of our work.
Yeah, if you want an app to find all the beacons in an area, it's called iBeacon.
iBeacon?
And it shows every beacon in this room.
Oh, right, right. You could actually download the Estimote SDK app as well.
What's the app called?
iBeacon. It gives you the ID and power level.
You're probably picking up on mine.
Yeah.
Unless somebody else in here has. Right. So we're going to actually make a reference to the Estimote SDK. We go ahead and take out some of this boilerplate code in here.
You know if the Estimote SDK works on the beacons, or is it specific for the Estimote?
I think it's specific for the Estimote. Whereas,
I think James has it. It's not.
oh, it's not. I haven't tried it with the other beacon. The beacon came in earlier this week, and I just tried it with the Estimotes. But I know that some of the other components that are on the Xamarin store work with both Estimote and whichever other one.
Yeah.
It is not really brand specific. And as a matter of fact, I think they pick up any Bluetooth LE or BLE signal as well.
I'm only ran into a few beacons that were specific.
Specific?
Yeah, I've got one that's very specific.
I cheated a little bit, and so I have some snippets that I'm going to add in here.
Like the guy in Vegas,
Which?
you reverse compiled something?
Oh, right. I don't know if that was in Vegas. Might have been.
No. It was presentation. You win the monkey.
He did. He won something. I'm just going to go ahead and add these UI elements. What I'm adding here are two buttons. One button to start monitoring for a beacon, and then a second button to do the ranging, to be able to do the distance and approximation. I have one text view here that is going to, once we hit the monitor button, it's going to try to find that specific beacon that I have in the room. And if it finds it, it's going to display its name. Once I hit the range button, it's going to display its approximate distance. And based on that, I'm going to change the color of another text box or text view that's underneath. That's on the form as well. It's going to change its color. So real simple demo, but I think it gets the point across. Let me do this. Let me go ahead and initialize some objects or create some objects. Actually, let me change this to.
How does having a beacon different from geofencing?
So I think they're kind of the similar concept if you're doing indoor navigation, but I don't know a whole lot about geofencing to be able to tell you differences. Oh,
The biggest one would be the geofencing require your GPS to be.
right. I guess that'd be one difference there. A big difference. I guess well, iBeacons work indoor, whereas GPS works outside, and GPS can't work inside. Like let's say, for example, of a mall or an area.
You get extremely finite with the beacon,
Right.
much more finite than GPS.
Right. And we'll see a demo here. We'll see the distance in meters or how close we can get to it. Have a couple of other snippets so that you guys don't sit there and just watch me type in these variables, member variables. Does anyone else have any other questions while I'm typing away? Gonna new up my region.
What's the power consumption like on the Android devices for the most part? Using the BLE?
So it kind of really depends also on the way we program it. So I get in one of the other factors into that is how the operating systems and the hardware handles the constant scanning of BLE signals, because that's essentially what you're doing. Is your app, you're basically telling it, I want you to look for a BLE signal, and I want you to do it at this interval for this long. As a matter of fact, I'll kind of show you how how that happens here in a second.
I was just kind of curious on the Android, what kind of power consumption is on that.
On Android, it's really it's kind of difficult just because the Android, it's as a platform, it's kind of fractured. It's fractured a whole lot.
Yeah, every device is different.
Right, right. You know what? Let me.
I guess the background work same way on Android. I haven't played with beacons on Android, so I don't know.
So the backgrounding on Android is actually more flexible than iOS, because Android is really the wild, wild west. Whereas on iOS, whenever you're backgrounding there and you want access to your Bluetooth stack, it actually asks the user for permission. Whereas on Android, as long as you declare it in the manifest, Android manifest, you're good to go. You're golden.
So looking through the Estimote API, and it actually talks specifically about geofencing
Does it?
with Estimote. Yeah.
So does it say?
The concept of just saying the device coming in.
Right. Oh, okay.
It's like 2 sentences.
So I guess that's what we're going to do in here too. We're going to do a simpler form of geofencing. We're going to,
Indoor geofencing.
yeah, indoor. That's what, I have a beacon back there somewhere. So I'm going to start up the app and hopefully it works. Should work. With the what?
Hopefully no one stole it.
Hopefully no one did. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. Yeah. You probably picked it out. So here's the actual region corresponds to a beacon. And this is the actual beacon that we're looking for. So let me go ahead and replace this.
John, this is the default thing when the beacons were working. In some of those spots.
They weren't working?
Oh, yeah, some of the
Could not.
yeah. Some of the challenges they had the beacon set up and the beacon are dead as a doornail. Or they just weren't set up at all.
Yeah, I couldn't get the QR code to scan either on the Windows phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the phone was scanning. Chris didn't help that there was a bunch of people standing around trying to get the QR code.
I'll go over this in a second once I get it done. So Beacon Manager is actually an object that is created in the Estimote SDK. So in here, I actually want to provide an implementation for the inter-region event handler. We're probably not going to see this, but it also would be pretty good to provide an implementation for the exited region event handler. Get some more snippets over here.
If you're exiting the store, they can ask you if you found everything you were looking for.
You can do that if you want to. Say goodbye. Or a good thing to do is on these devices, especially when you're on Android, and this is probably something, a common problem with .NET applications in general, is that whenever you're creating delegates, you can create memory leaks if you don't release those delegates before an application closes or whenever you navigate from one form to another. So the, how do you call that? The garbage collector will actually see that there's still a reference to this activity or to that form and won't GC it.
But don't you want the delegate to trigger to enter the region again?
Yeah, but that's where the start monitoring happens. Show you in a second.
So that's the service.
Let's see in here.
So exit region should detect if you have more than $100 in your wallet, it should lock the doors.
There you go. Okay.
Direct tie into the Google Wallet API.
Lock the doors and put some sign. We know you have money left.
Or better yet, just charge you for their air. If you're breathing out air, you'll charge your wallet.
An idea, which is a your phone and so there's a couple of things. He's got great ideas. Yeah. So his idea was how your ATM phone, so you don't have to use your card. Just go up there and it knows that you're really checking the phone.
So let's see if this builds here. want to make sure I don't have any. Okay. So here we're getting an exception, right? So it's telling me basically that in order to be able to call the connect method of the beacon manager, there's an interface that I need to implement. So if we go up to the top, and this goes back to your question about the background service, or your comment about the background service. So there is this interface off the beacon manager called iService Ready Callback. This is actually a pretty cool, how can you say, functionality. iService Ready Callback, along with the beacon manager, actually does all the heavy lifting for you, where you don't have to instantiate an instance of the BLE stack, or you don't have to actually go into the BLE stack to monitor for regions and beacons yourself. This handles it for you. And basically what this does is it runs this activity as a background service. What's really beneficial about this is that if somebody starts your app and then navigates over to a new app, you can still monitor for new beacons. And you can display that as a notification. So now that we have this, let me build it, see if we can get rid of that error. Oh, there is a method that I need to implement. What's that?
So say you don't have to implement it?
I do. I'm sorry. I was thinking ahead too much. I forgot the name of the actual method that I need to implement.
Right click it, resolve.
Yeah. I kind of like it. We'll do it this way. So usually in this method, on the on-service ready method, we would actually start monitoring. But in this instance, I don't want to start monitoring here. I don't want to start monitoring as soon as the activity loads up. I actually want to start monitoring when I hit the button, the start monitoring button. So in this case, we're just going to leave this blank. We're going to come back up here. And I think I have a few more snippets. So in here, in the button monitor click, that's when we want to start monitoring for beacons. When we monitor, we pass it in a region. In this case, we're only monitoring for one region. But if we wanted to monitor for all the beacons in this region that matched a particular UUID, you wouldn't implement these two parameters here. One of these corresponds to the major. The other one corresponds to the minor, which in this instant, I'm telling my app that I'm looking for something in particular. Maybe it's an Estimote sticker that's pasted on a TV or on a pair of shoes. We could actually pick up every single one of them just based on the UUID, which is this one here. Kind of looks like a GUID, probably is a GUID. So let's make sure this.
Is the name you passed in just for reference?
Yeah, so this is the actual name of the beacon that I gave it. It's the one that I want to look for, but it can be anything. Right, it could just be a key. So like think about it on your end. Say for example, if you had a collection of beacons sitting in some database in the cloud, in your app, you wanted to update your app with all the beacon profiles, you would probably give that some kind of name, or you can leave it blank as well. So. Let me also implement my event handler for the range button. In the actual range button, we're actually going to start ranging. We're going to provide it the same beacon.
We'll take an array.
It'll, so an array for, like, if you wanted to monitor.
Like we'll take an array of regions, or would you call start ranging multiple times?
No, so the beacon manager by itself will manage scanning for beacons. If I wanted to monitor for multiple beacons, here's how I would handle it. I would actually null out my major and my minor, and that in itself would return me a collection of every single beacon that it finds. So in this instance, since I'm only ranging for one, it's only going to return me one. Now I need to provide the implementation for the ranging event handler. And I also have a snippet for that, since we're going to be doing quite a bit in there. Actually, let me go over this right here. It's actually E. So here's where we would have a collection, Bill. Here's where we would have a collection of beacons. Beacons itself is a list of beacons, but in this case, we're only going to have one. So I'm just going to default to the very first one that it finds. And I'll go over what this util is here in a second. So I guess a lot of manufacturers out there of beacons provide their own SDK for you to be able to use their functionality. Estimote by far is the one that I've seen that has, like, that's more baked, that has more functionality than any of the other ones that I've seen out there. As a part of their functionality, they came out with this utility helper, which basically computes the distance from your device to the actual beacon itself, which is pretty slick. Otherwise, you'd have to do that yourself. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm actually computing the distance, the accuracy. I'm going to display it. And let me see what I named that box, that text box. So proximity in the Estimote SDK, it's actually 4 values. It's immediate, near, far, and unknown. And based on those 4 values, I'm going to change the background color of a text tree. Let's see, start monitoring. I'm missing something here, and I think I know what it is. Actually, this is redundant here. Really what I want there is the actual name of the beacon. So this is an interesting one. Set background scan period. And this is to the point that you brought up earlier about the power consumption. Here's where, as a developer, we have the responsibility to make sure that we're not eating up our users' battery power. So on the set background scan period, if you don't provide this, if you don't initialize it or set it, by default, it scans for 25 seconds, and it waits for 5 seconds, and then scans for another 25 seconds. It just repeats that cycle. So in this case, since we're doing a demo, I'm going to scan for 5 seconds and only wait for 1. This is in milliseconds. You wouldn't want to do this in a production app, though. You would eat up somebody's battery pretty quick. And just for best practices purposes, protected override. Whenever that activity is destroyed, before it gets destroyed, I'm just going to disconnect from the beacon manager. Hopefully this builds. It did. Let me set this as my startup. Now we're not done yet. We could run the app, deploy it to a device, and we could hit the start button, but nothing would happen. The reason being is that we actually have to give our app permissions to be able to do this. The best way that I do it is by going to the actual manifest, go to the source. I actually have a snippet for that too. So we're going to go over this one first. In the application node, you need to declare that interface that I implemented is basically a background service. So I need to declare that. If I could get all the way to the beginning of it, I need to declare that as a service in my manifest. So that way Android itself will allow it to run. I also need to give my application permission to use the Bluetooth stack. Let's run this. Let's build this. Okay, so it built. Now I'm going to, I know, right? Wow, that built. Why did it build? So let's go ahead and deploy. It's not. Let's see something. We connect it directly to my computer. There it is. No, it's going to my Nexus 9 device. So if you see right here, Nexus 9. Let's go ahead and stop it. I actually want to use Genymotion. Have any of you guys ever used, not Genymotion, but Movisun? Movisun is an application that you install like on your Android devices to be able to mirror your Android device onto a computer or onto a TV screen.
How's it spelled?
What's that? Movisun, M-O-B-I-C-E-N. I'll actually show you how it works here in a second. I have to log in on my actual device first, and there's like a two-step authentication process that it needs to go through.
It's like a furniture retailer in Quebec, Canada.
Really? And they make Android applications too. It's the Mobison, or Mobison. I'm sorry. Pardon my Spanglish. Yeah, there you go. What do you call it? California accent? It's actually pretty slick. I like it. I actually didn't know anything about this until I saw James Montemagno using it. So let's go ahead and connect. I want my Nexus 9. For it to work, you actually have to be on the same network. Or maybe not, I'm not sure.
You have it plugged up directly?
Yeah, there we go. Right now it's over wireless. Oh, let me try it again. I'm sorry. We do full screen. Can you guys see that all right? Okay. This is actually mirroring my device. Let's look for the demo. Now I'm going to hit start monitoring. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Oh, it found it right away. And that's the name of the beacon that I had programmed into it. DFWmobile.net beacon. Now I want to range for it. It says it's kind of like 8 meters.
Depends on where you stand.
I guess, yeah. So let's see. I have it back here somewhere.
Not quickly to move.
Yeah, I know, right? And all the interference. So let's see. If you see it, it's changing.
Yeah.
I think it's this way. It should be this one. Let me get it up closer. I guess there's some kind of delay in it.
Probably just the mirroring.
Yeah, like a delay back and forth. So if you can see, you see the distance of it is shortening up.
Yeah, the closer you get, the more erratic it can be.
Right. Yeah.
It's really kind of weird. But
Can you put an arrow on it, like to wherever it is?
I don't think so.
you'll see some really
Now I know you can do X and Y positioning on it, so you could actually see it move and travel around. That I didn't implement for this, but I know that you have that capable, like coordinates.
Yeah. Do they install like accelerometers?
They do. So this is accelerometer capable, but the SDK right now, from my understanding, doesn't support it. The accelerometer is supported on the sticker. So that's the only differences between the two. Yeah, at least from what I've read. So the stickers have more functionality. Technically, they do the same thing specification-wise. But it sounds like it's going to take almost a year to get them. Because I ordered.
Then there's that.
Yeah.
I mean, that took me forever to get the one I got.
I know, right?
Yeah, if you got mine, I'll take it.
You just buy
Probably knows how far away it
is. Go straight to the manufacturer.
I went to Estimote.com, and that's where I got them. And what's funny about them is that, like, I had completely forgot that I ordered my stickers until Sean and I both agreed that I would do this month's meetup. And I kind of figured I'd do it on Beacons. And so I emailed them and I asked them about the status of my order. And they told me they were just that far behind. Well, when I emailed them, it brought it to their attention. And a week later, I had my stickers.
You tell them you were going to present their stuff, so maybe they could hurry up.
No, maybe I should have done that. I probably would have got it the next day.
Yeah, maybe give you some free ones.
I know, right? So that's it, guys. Kind of a quick demo.
One question. Maybe more than one, but, so are there devices able to read that you can put into your PC, like
A Bluetooth sniffer?
or something,
Yeah.
so you could see the ones that are moving.
Yeah. Oh, I'm pretty sure. There's the actual. I mean, to be honest, like if I had enough time, I could probably write a view that shows that sticker moving. All it really is just programming it to go against the distance between the actual beacon itself and your app.
Well, I mean, I actually found one. So there's a USB plug-in that's got an iBeacon, but I don't know if it's a sender or receiver. But yeah, I think more of a receiver. So if you have, say a warehouse and you have carts,
Right.
and you want your PC needs to track all those, and you would have a base
Right.
that would be able to track all the
Yes.
beacons. They have devices that would.
I don't know if they have devices out there right now to do that.
I haven't seen it to be able to readers or identifiers.
I haven't
You'd
either.
be able to read it with your Bluetooth on
Yeah, you can read it. Now you can set up a bunch of devices. Like if you wanted to, like what I did for a test in the office, I used a bunch of iTouches.
Right.
Set them up.
Just set them up around.
And then that way I can pinpoint where the BLE was,
Right.
where the beacon was.
Right.
But it's because all of those devices were connected back to the server, reporting back what it's
Their location. Yeah.
and distances.
I think it would be cheaper to get that functionality you wanted using just Wi-Fi
RFID.
or RFID.
Yeah, that's actually cheaper. And that's the only obstacle that I see right now for beacons taking off. Like these right here cost me $30, $33. It's like $300-400. Those stickers are $10-400. But RFID tags, you can get them as cheap as like I think 50 cents, depending on what it is you want to get or do with them.
like a 10 for like $5.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but really it's more a matter of functionality. I mean, RFIDs sit there for
Right. Right.
The actual beacons are more mobile and more.
But they're
I think there's RFID is more of a passive one. It's a one-way
Yeah.
communication.
I don't know.
Well, by default,
It is.
Well, through sensors.
Just to find it,
Yeah.
You have to have
but you can get your beacon
pretty big RFID.
back and forth. So it's intelligence.
well, these beacons right here, they're only one-way communication.
One way.
It's one-way communication. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if later on down the road somebody kind of does something to accept two-way communication.
It's called Bluetooth.
Bluetooth. Okay, yeah. So
There's already some BLEs that are on two.
there are two-way. Okay.
But I think the Steve's question, though, so it looks like Raspberry Pi, you could use that as a receiver. So you can put Raspberry Pis up
Right.
or in the warehouse, funnel those back.
Right.
Basically use them as collectors.
That's the other thing. The other option that you have is that you can build your own. Really, what these things are, they're just small computers.
Well, even your iPhone and your mobile devices.
Can be a computer, iBeacon. Right.
I mean, an enterprise setting, right? You're looking, you can use a mobile device to be the receiver. It's got to be something fixed and attached and high.
Right. Right. So no. So what I meant by store information on this was back to my point with the Estimote beacons and what they did to solve the security issue. They actually stored a key on that actual device itself, the beacon itself. Now, on these devices, I can't send the information back. It's only transmitting.
Well, I can, though, before I put it out for a while, put some sort of packet on there to hit like an image URL or something that would represent that product.
It wouldn't go to the iBeacon format because the iBeacon format doesn't transmit any media at all.
What it does, it connects that iBeacon to backend, like a web service.
Right.
Yeah, you just get that. It works great. So you can just take the UID of the master definer and put your information based on that.
Any other questions?
There's for iOS, I'm trying to find it. I can't seem to find it anywhere. Using iBeacons in iOS, you have to add some additional compiler statements.
So on iOS, I think it's a little bit different for both iOS 7 and iOS 8. I can't speak entirely about it because I don't do a whole lot of iOS development, but I know that there are permissions. There are some specific permissions that you need to request from your user before being able to use that functionality. There's like the Bluetooth authorization request that needs to be granted. And you also need to grant it permission to run in the background, at least from my understanding.
Use Bluetooth LE accessories, and if it's acting as a Bluetooth accessory, that's another option.
Okay.
And that's a compiler setting, not a plist setting?
Well, it is a plist setting within the iOS application. Yeah, and on 7, you have to actually go in and add it manually. On 8, it shows up as an option.
Okay.
So it's kind of weird. Unless you modify the plist correctly, then it doesn't matter because you know what you're looking for.
So it's really just a Bluetooth. It's just got to be Bluetooth. Is it 4?
It's a Bluetooth 4.0, but not all Bluetooth 4.0 devices are BLE capable.
But, I mean, as far as receiving it, that we're saying.
Right.
Specifically BLE.
Yes. I think Bluetooth 4.0 can receive BLE signals.
So is the reason why Windows Phone doesn't support BLE a hardware or a software issue?
I think it may be maybe a software issue. I don't see why it would be a hardware issue. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine that it would be a hardware issue.
Yeah, I think it was both.
Was it both?
The older Windows Phone.
Okay. To be honest, I think where like Google dropped the ball on that, they didn't see any real. I guess they were betting a whole lot on NFC. Nokia.
Yeah, they actually came up with low energy Bluetooth.
Yeah, I think back then it was called Smart Bluetooth or Bluetooth Smart, which later evolved into BLE. But yeah, it looks like both Android and Microsoft are coming on board with it now. So, anybody else? Comments, questions? That's it. Thanks, guys. Definitely appreciate it. This was my first presentation.